Thank you, Sir Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and honored guest. It was all Boo Boo's fault. But Yogi, the Ranger's not gonna like it. What's not to like, Boo Boo? Now, if you remember, for those of you who were at my last speech, I talked about Yogi and Boo Boo. Growing up, the adventures of Yogi and Boo Boo. Boo Boo was my best friend Wendell, and Yogi was me, obviously. In that speech, I also mentioned that I wasn't called Yogi because I got in trouble all the time like Yogi did. No, I didn't get in trouble like he did. And it wasn't because I didn't have the chances to, it was just because I never did. You see, Yogi got in trouble, this Yogi did not. It's not that I didn't have the chances or the opportunities to. And I would like to invite the audience to participate in this speech. So whenever you hear the word therefore, the response is, it was all Boo Boo's fault. So let's give that a practice. Therefore,
it was all Boo Boo's fault.
Very good. You're all hired as participants in this speech now. I would like to make a disclaimer with all of this. First of all, no one ever got hurt. Not me, not Wendell, nobody. Except for maybe a couple of pieces of corn. And don't ever try any of these at home. I'm a professional. I'm Yogi Bear. Yogi never gets hurt. Don't try him at home. You could get hurt. Little background. Wendell had a grandpa that, I guess everybody would have a grandpa, but his grandpa had a farm out in the country up in Wisconsin. And we spent a lot of time there. So he had a farmhouse, and then around the front and on the sides was all cornfields during the summer months. And then behind it, there was a couple of gardens and then a hill that went up with a lot of wooded area. At the bottom of that hill, though, there was a creek. And it was on one of those instances, we were doing our reconnaissance of the wooded area there. But we came down to that creek again, and normally it only had maybe a foot of water running through it. And for some unknown reason, Boo Boo decided to reach down while I wasn't looking and grabbed a handful of sand and dirt out of the path and threw it at me. Do you believe that? Boo Boo throwing at Yogi? Well, I couldn't just stand there and take that, so I reached down and before you knew it, it was like a snowball fight up in Wisconsin, only it wasn't snow, it was sand. One throw back and one throw back. Before you knew it, it was just we were covered pretty much from head to toe in sand. Well, it's probably understandable if we had sand everywhere why we didn't see his dad come down. And all of a sudden it's like, what are you two doing? Nothing? We didn't do anything. Dripping with sand and dirt. Well, we weren't allowed back in the house the rest of that day, but we did have to take the hose outside of the house and wash each other off, and then we had to ride in the truck to get back home. We weren't even allowed to get back into the truck. But in all of this, the thing that you have to keep in mind, Wendell got grounded for like about 3 days after that. I didn't see him for those 3 days. Me? I didn't get grounded. I didn't even get in trouble. Therefore,
it was all Boo Boo's fault.
Very good. Now the second incident also happened out in that same area. Like I'd mentioned before, there was a big cornfield out front. And we would, other than running through the woods and playing down by the creek, we'd go through the cornfield, especially when the corn was taller than you were. Because you could hide in there. Where is he? We could find each other and children of the corn. So you'd be running through the cornfield in between the rows. Well, we'd pick the corn off of there and start, we'd detassel it, take the skins off of it, and we would start eating it raw. Well, on one of those days, we got the bright idea of, it'd be better if we actually cooked the corn. Well, in the middle of this cornfield, there was this kind of a wooded area, kind of a low spot. They didn't ever plant it. And the trees kind of grew up like the Brazilian pepper trees we have here, where it just kind of covers everything. And if you could get a path to get inside there, it was almost like you were in a fort. You couldn't see out, nobody could see in. Perfect place to have a fire, right? In the middle of trees. What could go wrong with that? We went back up to the house, got some matches, got some paper. So you need paper to start a fire, right? We went down back into there, crumpled up the paper, put it on the ground, put some wood over the top of it, lit it on fire. Perfect! Got the fire. We don't have anything to hold the corn, so here we are trying to hold it without our fingertips getting burned. So we're probably getting just the tips of the corn, maybe a little warm. Well, there was one little teensy-weensy thing we didn't quite take into account. Couldn't see in, couldn't see the fire from outside. But we didn't quite figure in the smoke. So here we are. Ow! What are you two doing? How'd you find us? Boy, those pails were heavy when we had to walk all the way from the house out to the fire with a bucket of water. But we got the fire up. The cornfield was saved. The trees were saved. But after that, I didn't see Wendell for probably about a week at that point, because he got grounded again. But Yogi? No. I don't even think my parents heard about it at that point. But Yogi got grounded. Therefore,
It was all Boo-Boo's fault.
I didn't get in trouble. So it obviously was his fault. Now the third one, I do have to, boy, I'm way over on time already. Oh well. The third one, so I'm going to drag myself off. I do have to make sure nobody's from the sheriff's department here. Nobody's wearing a bug or wire or anything. Because the police never found out about this one. And I honestly I had timed this at 6 minutes, I think, at the most. But I have to tell you about this one. Out behind our house, this is back at my house now, the house, the garage, we had a little garden out back. And the squirrels like to come up and eat some of the stuff off the, the beams and stuff out of there. So Wendell and I both have BB gun and pellet guns. So we'd go out to the garage and the squirrel would come up and you'd see the squirrel do one of these. And chuckling all the way, they never really got hurt, but they'd run up the tree and they're chuckling, scolding you for doing that. You could picture them, not literally, but you could picture them like rubbing their side. Then another one would come down and you do the same thing again. Never ever got hurt, but it was always fun. Well, on one of those days we were doing that, the neighbor lady yells across the street and says, "You kids, stop that!" We're not doing anything. I'll show you. There's her house. I took the BB gun. Remember, nobody tells the police this. I took the BB gun. I'm not dumb enough to hit the house. So I raised the gun up high enough. That's aimed over her house. Ding. You hit my window! What are you talking about, lady? I aimed way over your window. Way over your house. There's no way I hit your window. You hit it! We went back to the squirrels. While we're doing that, all of a sudden, we didn't even hear him coming in. Wendell's dad walks in. Wendell's dad, about 2 240, 250 probably, 6.5 foot tall, but a teddy bear. Never got real angry, always had a lot of fun with everybody. But he didn't say anything. He came over to Wendell, grabbed him by the arm. Just before they got to his house and the front door, he took the BB gun that Wendell was carrying, took it in one hand, in each hand, snapped it right over his leg. 2 pieces. I'm like, wow, guess he's in trouble. Well, I didn't see Wendell for several days after that. But there was one real key thing that we didn't quite take into account when we did that, or when I aimed. One little law of physics. It's called gravity. BB went up, BB came down. Perfect shot. I couldn't have planned it any better than I did. I did plan it, but key thought to all of that though is I didn't get in trouble again. Yogi didn't get in trouble, but Boo Boo did. I don't remember exactly, but I don't believe I saw him for several weeks, if not maybe more than a month at that point. I wasn't allowed to come over. I guess maybe I was a bad influence or something. But in all of that, I didn't get in trouble, therefore.
It was Boo Boo's fault.
Very good. Now with that, seeing as I'm probably up to about 10 minutes at this point, I will draw this to a conclusion and just say, but we did have a lot of fun growing up, and Yogi never got in trouble. Thank you.
Yogi,